Cortez, every so often on this show, we turn into a detective agency.
In what way?
We have a number, 513-85-PABLO. People call that number with their mysteries they want us to solve. And we solve the out of those mysteries.
I know. Shout out to these people for the mailbag. I appreciate all the calls.
It's not a mailbag, it's a detective agency. Again, we're not doing the stupid mailbag thing that every show does. I believe that what we're going to do here with this voicemail will prove that we're not just any show, if we can play that first non-mailbag voicemail.
Hey, Pablo, I saw your name in the headline of a New York Post article. It says, Larsa Pippen and Marcus Jordan trash, quote, miserable, end quote, Pablo Torre over podcast interview. So now that you officially have a feud with the Pippens and the Jordans, I need to hear your response. Please and thanks. Bye.
I'm going to have to wear this because we taped an episode of our podcast in which we interviewed Marcus Jordan and Larsa Pippen about their love.
Yeah, watch that one so you don't have to listen to their god-awful podcast.
Well, now we got to listen to their god-awful podcast as an excerpt because they, of course, actually said the things that caller was alleging.
You know, we did a podcast a week ago.
We did Pablo Torre's podcast, and
they talked a lot of shit
they
about us
talked a lot
before
of shit, you know. And I wasn't too familiar with the format of his show. Maybe that's on us not doing our research or whatever. But yeah, I feel like the first half segment of the show was talking crazy, and so you know, it's just funny because then when we did our interview, they didn't really keep that same energy. You know, I felt like, you know, obviously they had listened to the podcast, they were familiar with it, but our interview was very fluffy.
And it was very one-sided.
It was very fluffy. And I feel like their commentary that aired before our interview was, you know, was pretty biased.
It was a hit piece, by the way.
It was a little bit of a hit piece. And now actually having watched it back, I wish that producer, you know, there was some I can't remember the dude's name. I just wish he was there because I feel like our interview would have taken a different tone and we would have been able to clap back a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
It's funny because I feel like the people that have so much to say are so miserable in their real lives. If we took 5 seconds to research them, which I would never even do because they're not worth our time, you'd really realize these people are a bunch of losers.
Yeah.
It was a hit piece.
A hit piece.
What a great line.
They didn't remember that you, Ryan Cortez.
They know my name. Out of here. Come on.
I am just bummed that I thought we had bonded with them.
That's how you left the interview? That you thought you guys were friends?
I was like, I might be at this wedding. Like, I was hoping for a follow-up episode where we're at the wedding, listening to Michael Jordan give the best man's toast.
Clap back, Pablo.
Speaking of miserable assholes, what's next?
Hey, Pablo. So I ate some really yummy Thai food last night, but it was so spicy. And this morning, I had the spiciest shit of my life. And I just, don't feel good. It's like walking home from work, just felt gross all day. And it had me thinking about David Sampson. And I'm just wondering if you could find out if he has any strategies for, mitigating the impact of a spicy shit and also find out if his butthole is okay. Thanks. Bye.
I just want to say that I love that we are a safe space for listeners of all genders.
What a great
to
call.
confess how miserable their asshole actually is.
Yeah, I also have had the same question about how that's gone for him.
So we had David Sampson on for an episode about how he lost smell and taste due to COVID and how he truly, because we did the hot ones like hot sauce challenge and he tasted hot sauces that were draped his wings in hot sauces that were like a zillion Scoville units or whatever it is, and was totally unaffected.
Allegedly.
Well, I text him now, and in the present tense, he reports this, quote, "When it comes to hoop burn," use your imagination, "my days are spent not with prevention, but treatment. I thought I was in the clear after the hot sauce challenge with Sean Evans, host of Hot Ones. 72 hours later, things went horribly wrong. So I have two letters for you, A and D. I believe that's like an ointment that you put on like baby butts." And he says, "Unfortunately, my loss of taste and smell did not come with a concomitant loss of anal nerves. But the juice is worth the squeeze." So to translate it, quote, "My hole is on fire."
Well, so here's the thing. I am not surprised because I believe David Sampson to be somewhat of a liar, and I will tell you why. Juan Galindo, one of our great video editors, was telling me that he noticed out of the corner of his eye that after all of this took place in our studio, that David Sampson retreated to the back where like you could get milk and water and so forth. And David was alone, and Juan just saw him and was like noticing how David looked like he was in so much pain. And he was like trying to hide it, and he was sweating.
So you are accusing David Sampson of fabricating the entire premise of this episode, which is that actually he feels everything. He's just doing this for attention.
Oh, you put me in a tough spot because
You're
alleging
quite the leap. That David Sampson is Larsa Pippen.
They both could use some help.
Next voicemail.
What's up, Pablo? This is Jack calling from Venice, California. I have a college mascot question for you. I know there's a long, sordid history of indigenous mascots. Some are like the flagrant examples like the Chief Wahoo and the Washington football team I won't name. But would love your explanation on what the hell an Oklahoma Sooner is. It's given real killer of the flower moon energy to me, but would love your take. Let me know if I'm on the right track with it being particularly bad, or maybe it's harmless.
So he's asking us to tell him whether or not this is a problematic mascot and where this mascot even comes from.
Something we need to know about all mascots.
It's honestly helpful for me to know this. I did not know this. We reached out to David Grann, author of Killers of the Flower Moon.
I read that.
One of the great nonfiction writers on the planet.
Yeah, from the New Yorker.
Who wrote the book, of the New Yorker, who wrote the book that got turned into the Scorsese movie. And he gave us this.
It turns out that the term dates back to the land runs of the late 19th century in what was then Indian Territory and is now part of the state of Oklahoma. The U.S. government had a long policy of trying to drive Native Americans off their lands and open up these prairies and territories to white settlers. And so it had arranged to have these races. They were these mad dashes for lands where at the sound of a gun, settlers would gather, and at that sound, they would race down, and if they got to a parcel of land first and put in their stake, they would lay claim to it. During the land run of 1893, thousands, tens of thousands of settlers gathered waiting for the start of the gun. And the term Sooner came from those who tried to sneak across the line early.
So I didn't know any of that. The idea that, okay, it's not that the nickname itself is like problematic, but the people it describes apparently are these people who were these settlers that were treating like Native American land like it was a Walmart on Black Friday.
Also, it's pretty amazing that like this amazing author from the New Yorker and all these books is like wasting his time answering our questions.
I do love that.
It's amazing.
I love that David Grann
How did we
answered our
convince him
mascot question.
Yes, thank you.
But speaking of people desperately trying to be first, what's next?
Yo, Pablo, Billy from Brooklyn. I saw on Twitter, X, that Woj blocked you. What the hell could you have done to deserve that?
Why is it about what I must have done?
You probably did something. Let's be real.
I want to be clear about this whole entire thing. I'm not here to be as messy as the top of the show indicates, actually. I'm not realizing how much I am apparently this controversial character.
How'd you discover you were blocked?
So the morning of the Harden trade, I get all these texts, and I'm like, what the happened? And I go, of course, to the NBA's biggest newsbreaker, and I find out that the man who broke the Harden trade had blocked me.
Shams blocked you?
Oh, God. Set me up for that.
Wow, so Woj
blocked me, which is strange because I am, of course, his former full-time colleague, now part-time colleague at ESPN. And so I don't know what I did. I was surprised to learn. And my only theory is that because I work for Meadowlark and I work with you, that the Miami Heat propagandists have put a stain on my good name.
You might be right in terms of me being to blame for this because I have my own story with Woj in the past on Twitter.
What
I do with a lot of people.
What did you do?
So I had been following Woj for many years, as most people do. And I noticed one day I got a notification that said, Adrian Wojnarowski followed you back. And I said, I made it.
Yes, he used to follow me as well.
Yeah, I was like proud and showing people, Woj follows me now. And like 2 days later, I noticed Woj unfollowed me. And that pissed me off. So you unfollowed? You had the nerve to go to my you were that busy? You're the busiest man in news breaking and you hate my profile so much that you had to unfollow me? So he blocked you.
Yeah.
He unfollowed me.
Yeah.
At least I'm not blocked.
Yeah.
So he really doesn't like our show.
I have breaking news for you. You undoubtedly just got blocked.